Radio Philippines Network Incorporated, DXKO. 13 sa Zinday Utso sa dial sa inyong radyo. RPN DXKO, ang Radyo Ronda dili sa Dakbayan sa Cagayan de Oro. Sibiyahan na may galaon sa katawhan, andam mo serbisyo sa tanan. Ang RPN DXKO Radyo Ronda sakop sa KBP, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
Of the Pantawid Pasada program during a House Transportation Committee hearing, the Federation of Jeepney Operators and Drivers, or FEDJADAP, complained about the rigorous process involved in claiming assistance from regulators. They added the subsidy should directly benefit drivers, not just operators. The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board says it is already in consultation with Land Bank of the Philippines in order to make the claims for benefits easier, especially for drivers.
Hindi daw po talaga sila nakukuha. Ang katanungan ko po nga sa kanila, talagang yung mga driver, hindi naman po talaga sila makukuha. Yung beneficiary po niyan, yung driver. Pero yung tanging makakakuha po nito, yung mga operator. Which is lahat po ng mga existing requirements na hinahanap po ng ating gobyerno ay manggagaling po sa operator.
Consistent with the law, we have implemented the program whereby klarong-klaro po doon na yung beneficiary ay yung qualified legitimate franchise holder. So even on our part, when we devise the implementation plan, hindi na namin pinagtatalunan patungkol dito. Kaya we have to find a way na yung concern ng lahat ng mga transport group dito at hindi lang sa Metro Manila at buong bansa na aabot yung subsidiya doon sa bibili ng krudo.
Land Bank says as of Saturday, around 87,500 jeepney drivers have received the cash aid. Over 377,000 public transport drivers are set to benefit from the program. More wage hike petitions are expected in the coming days amid soaring prices of fuel and basic commodities. The Labor Department says 10 petitions filed in 6 different regions are now under review, and granting them will take time. Our Tristan Nadalo reports.
The Labor Department appeals for patience and understanding as they review petitions to increase the prevailing minimum wage in the country.
So kailangang maingat na maingat sila dyan. At kapag ka nag-issue na ng wage order, sabihin lahat susunod doon. So importante na masunod yung proseso.
Regional Wage Board directors recently met to discuss the overall socio-economic situation in the country and to urgently look into the petitions.
Napaka-challenging nung situation natin ngayon because of the pandemic. Of course, we understand the position of our workers. We also understand the position of the employers. And of course, yung mga kasama natin sa board at saka sa commission, ang NEDA, alam din natin yung kanilang concern about the minimum wage, and the BSP and the DOF.
The needs of workers and their families, capacity to pay of employers, comparable wages and income, and requirements of economic and social development are some of the factors considered in adjusting the minimum wage. There are 2 ways on how a wage increase may happen.
Yung una, by virtue of a petition for wage increase. Pangalawa naman is motu proprio by the board. The board see compelling reason to already initiate a public hearing, then they can do so under the law.
It will take at least 45 days to decide on the petitions filed in 6 regions. Some 3.6 million minimum wage earners will benefit should the petitions get the nod. Some 6.8 million above minimum wage earners also stand to gain from the wage adjustments. Labor Group Trade Union Congress of the Philippines has also filed a petition on Monday for a 430 peso increase in minimum wage in Central Visayas, particularly in Cebu, Bohol, and Siquijor. The Labor Department adds the petition should be carefully reviewed in order to avoid potential long-term impact, including loss of employment. Tristan Odalo, CNN Philippines.
TUCP also planning to file a wage hike petition in Central Luzon, Northern Mindanao, Calabarzon, Davao Region, and the Zamboanga Peninsula. Another labor group filing a wage increase petition in Central Visayas. The Alsa Contractual Cebu also seeking an increase ranging from 346 to 399 pesos for Central Visayas, depending on the industry and classification of the town and city. If granted, this will make the minimum wage for the entire region 750 pesos daily. Ukraine rejects terms set by Russia to give up the besieged city of Mariupol on day 26 of the war. The port city, home to around 450,000 people, has been under constant attack since earlier this month. While the Russian ultimatum offered safe evacuation for Ukrainians who will choose to surrender, there is no guarantee for those staying in Mariupol. World leaders have repeatedly accused Russia of targeting civilians. Well, back here at home, a former top diplomat says the Philippines must weigh the trade sanctions against Russia. But for Filipino businessmen, there is no need to join the bandwagon of allies that punish Moscow for its invasion of Ukraine. Our senior correspondent Lois Calderon reports.
The tie that binds the Philippines and Russia is as old as the post-war era. 46 years. The two are connected in the belly by food. Federico Macaranas was Manila's number 2 diplomat when the world witnessed the tail end of the U.S.-Russia Cold War. Macaranas signed a Memorandum of Understanding for Technology Exchange in 1991, shortly after the USSR was dismantled and became the Russian Federation that we know today, without Ukraine.
For example, tropical fruits, they love our juices because it is difficult to get them at lower prices in that part of the world. And of course, we also had to buy wheat from them, which is a staple for our bread industry.
The Philippines imports or buys more from Russia than it sells: wheat, coal, and steel bars. So when it's food and energy that bind the two nations, that's hard to sever, especially because cutting supply could jack up consumer prices. So Filipino businesses disagree with punishing Moscow with economic sanctions.
The volume that we do, it's very small, and the sanction will not mean too much with Russia.
Among your members, do they actually have relations, trade relations with Russia, or some Russian or Russians have interests or stakes in some Philippine companies?
I would like, I believe so, like steel bars and cold briquette. I would think that there are companies importing this material from Russia. And for a while, some would like to export banana to Russia.
But for diplomat Macaranas, who's now an economist at the Asian Institute of Management, the Philippines cannot avoid joining the bandwagon of nations that boycott Russia. Already, Manila has voted yes to a United Nations resolution condemning Moscow's invasion of Ukraine.
Kasi as a small nation, we survive with the kind of nations that we ally with. The general tenor is the common good of these allies may also be the one that dictate our common good.
There are other contracts with Moscow, but Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana earlier said Manila will not drop a $12 billion deal to buy 17 helicopters from Russia.
What are the safety records of their helicopters?
Sanctions have replaced warfare in the hope that Vladimir Putin would change course. But to sanction or not to sanction, the consequences are dreadful. It's a tough balancing act, which is why in war, there are no winners. Lois Calderon, CNN, Philippines.
A developing story at this hour, a Chinese plane with 132 people on board, including 9 crew members, crashed in southern China this afternoon. Beijing is reporting a Boeing 737 jetliner crashed in mountains in the Guangxi region, causing a fire on site. Authorities are determining the number of deaths while a rescue team has been deployed to the scene. The China Eastern Airlines flight from Kunming to Guangzhou went missing earlier today. Again, this is a developing story. Stay tuned to CNN Philippines. When we return, following accusations of a data security breach, authorities say charges may be filed against a former employee of pole technology provider Smartmatic. While kidnapping and illegal detention charges have been filed against 8 suspects allegedly involved in the disappearance of 34 cockfight enthusiasts. Details after the break. Welcome back to Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. The National Bureau of Investigation believes charges can be filed against a former employee of pole technology provider Smartmatic, which is facing accusations of a data security breach. The NBI says the contractual worker admitted he allowed a group to access his work laptop after he was supposedly offered training and money in exchange for Smartmatic data. Senator Amy Marcos, who accused Smartmatic of a data breach, earlier cited Facebook posts by a supposed hackers group called XSOX.
We are convinced that we could prosecute yung former employee ng Smartmatic for illegal access, Your Honor, and for obstruction of justice. We are not inclined to believe na may mga sensitive information po na na-exfiltrate from the side of COMELEC and Smartmatic. Hindi ko katulad noong 2016. Yung theory namin is this XSOX is trying to mimic the incident that took place in 2016.
The NBI says it aims to finish its probe on the claim by this month. Both the Commission on Elections and Smartmatic deny the supposed breach. Presidential contenders have different positions on issues hounding the country, but at least for one night, most of them were one in saying the government should go after billions of pesos in unpaid estate taxes of the Marcoses. Details from our senior correspondent, Anjo Alimario.
The 2-hour COMELEC presidential debate was just about to wrap up when Manila Mayor Isko Moreno brought up the unpaid estate taxes of the Marcos family.
Yung isang pamilyang may utang ng 203 billion na estate tax, sisiguraduhin natin, sisingilin ko yon, kukunin ko yung 200 billion na yon, ibibigay ko sa magsasaka, ibibigay ko sa driver bilang ayuda.
Senator Panfilo Lacson agreed.
Train 1, Train 2, ang dami, 101 billion. Meron 203 billion nga na sisingilin lamang na andyan na, bakit ay singilin ng biyaya?
Even Vice President Leni Robredo chimed in.
Pag nasingil natin ito, hindi na natin kailangan tipirin yung ating mga kababayan.
Moreno also found an ally in Labor leader Leody de Guzman.
Pero sang-ayon din ako, pare.
The Bureau of Internal Revenue said it had recently sent a demand letter to the Marcoses to settle their estate taxes. An estate tax is a tax on the right of a deceased to transfer his or her estate to his or her lawful heirs. Marcos has recently brushed off questions of the matter, describing it as fake news. But the Supreme Court in 1997 already ruled with finality, ordering them to pay 23 billion pesos. That amount, according to some, has already grown to over 200 billion pesos. Marcos also insisted people are no longer interested in the issue and are more focused on finding jobs.
Kung ako po sa kanya, gusto niya magbigay ng trabaho, wala po siyang gagawin na mahirap. Bayaran lang po yung 203 billion.
For Robredo, it says a lot about Marcos's personality.
How unqualified he is for the presidency. Kasi na-imagine mo ba na somebody na aspiring to be president, napakalaki ng utang sa pamahalaan?
Marcos was again a no-show in the debate on Saturday, opting instead to campaign in Marikina. Anjali Mario, CNN Philippines.
Presidential candidate Bongbong Marcos sees himself as a victim of misinformation. He rejects reports that claim he benefits from misinformation on social media. He also advises voters to research among legitimate sources, especially in the martial law regime under his father, the late President Ferdinand Marcos Sr.
Sinasabi ko, pero wag lang kayo makinig sa akin dahil may agenda din ako eh. Ama ko yan eh. Siyempre, kakampi ko siya. Mag-aral kayo. Mag-research kayo na mabuti. Ang daming libro dyan. Ang dami nasa internet na. Balikan ninyo yung mga dyaryo noon. Balikan ninyo yung mga nagsusulat noon. At tignan naman talaga ninyo kung ano yung talagang nangyari para makapag-aral kayo na mabuti.
Marcos's father seized newspapers, radio stations, and television networks on the first days of his dictatorship in 1972. Now, during last Saturday's COMELEC-sponsored debate, Vice President Leni Robredo said she's mostly the victim of misinformation and that Marcos benefits most from it. But she appealed to her supporters to stay grounded when talking to people who back other candidates.
Kahit napakarami na natin ngayong gabi, marami pa din ang hindi natin kasama. Kaya po, tara na. Ipanalo na natin ito.
Last Sunday, Robredo supporters filled Emerald Avenue and nearby streets in Ortigas-centered Pasig City with pink in her biggest campaign rally yet. Pasig police say over 90,000 people attended the event. Organizers say the number was around 130,000. A vice presidential candidate wants tougher sanctions against survey frontrunners Bongbong Marcos and Sara Duterte for their non-appearance in COMELEC debates, while another aspirant calls for a grand coalition to defeat that tandem. Amor Santos has that story.
Where are you? Nasaan ka? Nasaan ang pera? Ibalik mo na ang pera.
On stage,
it's unfortunate that Sara is not coming to the debates.
And off stage, vice presidential candidates were up in arms over the absence of the Marcos-Duterte tandem in COMELEC's debates over the weekend. Former Akbayan Party List Representative Walden Bello wants tougher penalties against them.
Yung ginagawa ho niyong penalty, yung hindi sasama sa e-rally, my God, ang hina ho nyon. We need to get something from these people to penalize them, like a big, huge penalty, like 203 billion pesos.
But the poll body says in the absence of a law requiring candidates to attend, the debates will remain voluntary. Its Anbank, however, will discuss other possible sanctions.
Hindi natin pwedeng pilitin yung mga kandidato na ayaw sumama.
Before the debates even started, pro-life advocate Rizalito David already called for unity against the survey frontrunners. He says he's willing to withdraw from the vice presidential race and support the strongest contenders versus Marcos and Duterte, and his rivals should follow suit.
I don't mind supporting Senator Soto, no? And I don't mind supporting Leni Robredo.
But the other contenders won't budge, not even Soto.
I'm speechless. I wish to thank him for considering me as a possible alternative candidate.
You must remember, yung mga lumalamang, ito sa atin lang, di ba? He's factual. Yung mga lumalamang, by this time, 6 years ago, talo.
It's too early to make decisions of that sort, but clearly I'm out to win.
COMELEC's next presidential debate is set on April 3, followed by another back-to-back face-off on April 23 and 24. Amor Santos, CNN Philippines.
New developments into the probe on the disappearance of cockfight enthusiasts. Investigators have filed kidnapping and illegal detention charges against 8 suspects. A witness positively identified a gaming tycoon for his alleged abduction more than a year ago. Amor Santos returns.
Ang sabi po ay, Bosay, may mga tao na naman dito na pumasok na mga manchochope. Tapos, ang sabi niya po, naka-loudspeaker po yung cellphone niya eh.
Kilala mong boses ni Abang?
Medyo malat po. Sige, paaminin niyo kung sino ang boss. Pag hindi niya namin, patayin niyo na.
This witness claims that in a cockfight arena in Santa Cruz, Laguna in November 2020, gaming tycoon Atong Ang gave orders to hold him and his companions for panyonyope or cheating in online sabong. He said they were brought before Police Master Sergeant Michael Claveria of the Provincial Intelligence Branch. He said they were asked to choose, be framed for drug charges or be killed.
Ang sabi po niya sa amin, bakit si Boss Atong pa ang inyong ang inyong binangga? Hindi nyo ba alam, pader yun? Papatayin po daw kami, 5,000 isang ulo po. Eh syempre po, sa amin po ay kaso na lang po, kaysa patayin po kami.
Both Claveria and Ang denied the allegations. The businessman said it's part of a conspiracy against him and that a competitor is behind it.
Si Bong Pineda, siguro maybe. Dahil sa power niya, sa pera niya, hawak niya presidente, hawak niya ang pulis. Wala akong magagawa ko, wala akong connection sa pulis eh.
Unang-una, hindi po ako licensee. At pangalawa po, kung conspiracy man kalaban kay Boss AA, magkaibigan naman po kami. Kaya malamang hindi ako kasama dun.
Ang maintained he only uses legal means to deal with issues, citing a time when he reported illegal e-sabong websites to the police. He said it was a colonel who suggested a more sinister way to handle the problem.
Ito si Colonel Rogart, sabi niya, boss, gusto mo dukutin na lang namin eh. Hindi ko alam kung nagbibiro siya o ano. Hindi ko na po matandaan na.
Authorities are looking into 8 cases regarding the disappearance of 34 cockfight enthusiasts from April last year to January 2022. Police have filed kidnapping and serious illegal detention complaints against 8 suspects and several John Does. During the Senate hearing, family members of e-sabong agent Ricardo Lasco implicated police officers who also denied their involvement.
Kahit ano po ang sabihin ng aming makasamang pulis na inaakusahan ngayon, we will continue filing the case because we believe that these witnesses are credible.
Amor Santos, CNN Philippines.
Coming up on News 9, a foreign team is joining the PBA Governor's Cup for the first time in nearly 20 years. And global pop superstar Ariana Grande gushes over a huge crowd in Pasig singing her hit Break Free. Stay tuned to CNN Philippines. Welcome back to CNN Philippines. The PBA is set to welcome its first foreign guest team in 18 years next season. The Hong Kong Bay Area Dragons will play in the season-ending Governor's Cup. It represents Greater China with top free agents from mainland China, Hong Kong, Macau, and Chinese Taipei. The PBA Board of Governors gave the go signal in line with their partnership with the East Asia Super League. From a PBA entrance to an exit, the Alaska Aces bidding farewell to the league after quarterfinals loss to the NLEX Road Warriors 96-80 Saturday at the Smart Araneta Coliseum. Alaska has played 35 seasons, winning 14 championships. And pop star Ariana Grande and Phil-Am social media star Bretman Rock became the talk of the internet because of posts related to Leni Robredo's presidential campaign. Grande shared 2 videos of Robredo's Pasig campaign rally when the crowd sang to her song, Break Free. The singer's caption reads, quote, "I could not believe this was real." Bretman Rock revealing Robredo is his presidential bet of choice while reposting her closing statement in the recent COMELEC debate. The vlogger said, quote, "My president is a woman," unquote. Also trending, the 4-year wait for Big Bang fans will be over very soon. The veteran K-pop group announced it will release new music on April 5. Here's a look at the first poster for their comeback. Big Bang's agency has yet to announce if this is a single or a full album. And the Philippines is the second happiest country in Southeast Asia based on the 2022 World Happiness Report. It ranked 60 out of 146 nations, 1 spot up from last year's ranking of 61. Singapore topped the list for Southeast Asian countries at 27. Finland was number 1 globally for the 5th straight year. Data is based on factors like GDP per capita and perceptions of corruption. And that is it for now. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight. We leave you with a look at a new way to watch movies on the go.
Hi Bixby, turn on the freestyle.
Samsung is breaking the boundaries of home entertainment.
Recognize that home entertainment shouldn't be bound to the four corners of your house.
Radio Philippines Network Incorporated, DXKO. 13 sa Zinday Utso sa dial sa inyong radyo. RPN DXKO, ang Radyo Ronda dili sa Dakbayan sa Cagayan de Oro. Sibiyahan na may galaon sa katawhan, andam mo serbisyo sa tanan. Ang RPN DXKO Radyo Ronda sakop sa KBP, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
SMC San Miguel Corporation.
One in 8 women will develop thyroid problems in their lifetime. And contrary to popular belief, men can get them as well. Your thyroid plays a vital part in regulating your metabolism. It produces hormones that are responsible for controlling how you respond to heat or cold, how your heart rate may increase or decrease, how much you burn calories, and much more. But when it produces too much or too little of these hormones, you can develop a number of diseases. On the program today, we'll talk more about this condition, how best to manage it, and ways to maintain a healthy thyroid. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and welcome to MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. If you experience sudden weight gain or weight loss, there might be something wrong with your thyroid. Our guests are here today to tell us more about this. With us is Dr. Monica Kating Cabral, who is an endocrinologist from Asian Hospital and Medical Center. Also with us is Dr. Arjelin Ong, who is an ENT head and neck surgeon from the Medical City and co-founder of Celto Medico. Now, this topic, the thyroid, is very interesting because a lot of our viewers may be familiar with some of the disease entities but not so familiar on how a normal thyroid should be. Dr. Arj, saan ba nakikita ang thyroid natin? At normally, ito ba'y nakakapa?
Well, our thyroid gland is a butterfly-shaped gland that is found here at the front of the neck. So all of us have it. It's located here, somewhere below the Adam's apple. And normally, you will not be able to feel it, and it's not palpable or it's not noticeable in normal individuals.
Dr. Mitos, when it comes to function, ano ba yung role ng thyroid gland sa katawan ng isang tao?
The thyroid makes thyroid hormone, and this is the hormone that controls our metabolism. So if you have a lack of thyroid hormone or kulang ka sa thyroid hormone, this is called hypothyroidism, and your metabolism can be slow. So patients tend to gain weight, they feel cold, they're constipated. So that's the usual person who is lacking thyroid hormone. Kung sobra naman tayo sa thyroid hormone, parang napakabilis ng metabolism. So everything is fast. Your heart rate is fast, you have palpitations, pinagpapawisan, tremors, and then patients also tend to lose weight.
Now let's talk about goiter, or in Tagalog, bosyo. Normally, this is very common in the Philippines, especially in certain areas. Dr. Mitos, bakit kaya this is the case, na this is common in certain areas of the Philippines as opposed to others?
Before, actually, this was very common in the areas like the mountain provinces, way up in the mountains where we don't get seafood. So what's important about that? The main ingredient kasi, yung pinakasangkap ng thyroid hormone is iodine. And iodine comes from seafood. Kung kulang ka sa iodine sa diet, ang mangyayari dyan, your thyroid wants to make a lot of thyroid hormone. Kung kulang siya sa iodine, then it tries to compensate for that. No? So nagiging overactive yung mga cells sa thyroid natin. And that's when you can develop nodules or enlargements in the thyroid.
Now, Dr. Arj, pag nagkaroon ng goiter, meron ng lumaki, automatic, a lot of our viewers might think pag merong lumaki na bagay sa katawan, cancer na ito. Is this usually the case?
One type of enlargement of the thyroid or goiter is what we call nodular goiter. So, ibig sabihin, yung thyroid gland natin, nagpo-form siya ng mga nodules, and these nodules are usually divided into benign or yung malignant or cancerous. And studies show that majority pa rin ng nodules sa thyroid are still benign.
And another thing also, Dr. Arj, many think na yung panlalaki sa due ito sa excessive talking, malakas sa pagsigaw o madalas na pagkakanta. Is there any truth to this?
So no, that's not true. Kahit gaano kalakas ka sumigaw, kahit gaano kadaldal ka, it will not cause an enlargement of your thyroid gland.
Now, while pregnancy is a risk factor for having goiter, some believe that it can be passed down from mother to the child or to the baby. Dr. Mitos, ang goiter ba ay namamana ba ito?
So yung goiter, pwedeng namamana siya. So, pero hindi naman ibig sabihin kung may goiter yung nanay mo, habang nasa loob ka pa rin ng nanay mo na magkaka-goiter ka din. Yung nakakatakot lang po is kung hyperthyroid yung nanay at sobra po ang thyroid hormone niya habang buntis, yun pwede pong apektado yung baby bago pa siyang lumabas. But just because you had a thyroid nodule doesn't mean that all your children will have it. There is a risk kung nagkaroon po ng nodule that is cancerous. There are certain types of thyroid cancer that can run in families. No? So that's the one thing that we have to identify. Kailangan po malaman kung may bukol po tayo sa thyroid, ano kaya yung dahilan.
Now, let's talk about nodules at this point, Dr. Mitos, because this is something that's very important, one that may signify that there is some abnormality here. If someone has a nodule, ito ba ay nakakapa? And if so, should they worry about this? Are nodules in the body something that our viewers should worry about?
These nodules are usually benign. Now, the nodules can be solid or they can actually just be cyst. So, kapag kinakapa niyo po yung leg ninyo at parang may nakikita kayong bukol dyan, kahit nakikita rin minsan po sa salamin, hindi pa natin alam kung solid yan, kung full of fluid or cyst lang po siya. So yun po muna kailangan natin malaman. But again, most nodules, lumalaki ba sila na mabilis? Yun din yung isang kailangan bantayan.
Reminder to our viewers, don't be alarmed right away. Have it checked with your doctor, with your endocrinologist or your surgeon for that matter, to be able to be sure if, and they will perform some tests whether to find out if that nodule is something to worry about or not. Anyone can develop a goiter, but there are some who are more vulnerable to it. And there are also a number of factors that can influence your thyroid function or its growth. More on this when we return. You're watching MedTalk Health Talk, your partner in healthcare. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez and welcome back to MedTalk Health Talk, where caring is our calling. Now, your thyroid is a small, butterfly-shaped organ responsible for regulating your metabolism. But when it's swollen or enlarged, you might have a problem called goiter. Now, it's important to note that it doesn't necessarily indicate that your thyroid is malfunctioning, but it does mean that there's a condition present that's causing it to grow abnormally. Now, I'd like to talk about the other side of the thyroid problems, and that is a malignancy or cancer na ng thyroid. Why is this so kaya? Bakit tinatawag itong good cancer?
So there are many types of thyroid cancers, but ang pinaka-common po ang tinatawag na papillary thyroid cancer. And it's oftentimes termed as a good type of cancer because it is very slow growing. And because of that, surgery is the best form of treatment because when caught early and treated properly, then the cure rate is very, very high and the patient can continue to live a normal life after treatment.
So the prognosis is really good, especially pag nakuha ito ng maaga. Dr. Mitos, when it comes to some of the symptoms na nangyayari for someone with thyroid cancer as opposed to goiter, mas evident ba ang isang thyroid that is malignant or cancerous?
Hindi rin. No? So that's why it's really important to try and find out what the diagnosis is. We do the biopsy to find out if it's cancer. Nag-mention si Dr. Arch na if it's fast-growing, we usually do recommend surgery already. The good thing about the most common type of thyroid cancer, yung tinatawag na papillary thyroid cancer, as she mentioned, it's slow to grow. It's also slow to metastasize. So yun ang takot natin, di ba? Pag sinabi mo yung cancer, kumalat ba siya? So with papillary thyroid cancer, it's also slow to metastasize. And there's medication actually that we can give after surgery to try and make sure that the metastasis is very minimal or that we catch the metastasis early or that we also can prevent metastasis from occurring after surgery.
Earlier on the show, I mentioned how women are more likely to have a problem with the thyroid gland, but men are at risk as well. What should men know about this, or what are the statistics with men having a thyroid problem?
Both men and women can have a lack or an excess of thyroid hormone, yung sobra or yung kulang. But what's more concerning in men is when they have thyroid nodules. It's been shown that men, especially younger men, in 20s and 30s, kung may goiter po sila, may bukol dyan. These usually are biopsied early. We follow them with ultrasound more frequently, like every 6 months. And if it's seen that they're enlarging rapidly, and definitely if on biopsy nakita po na cancer siya, dapat kailangan po surgical removal already of the thyroid.
Dr. Arch, when it comes to risk factors for thyroid cancer, what would be the more common ones?
Well, some of the risk factors that have been seen to develop thyroid cancer would be, first is specific type of radiation. If you're exposed to radiation as a child, then you are at risk to develop thyroid cancers. As Dr. Mitos mentioned a while ago, some thyroid cancers can run in families. So we have several patients that have had family members all with thyroid cancers. And another thing is, as with other cancers, as you get older, you're more prone to develop some cancer. So advanced age can also be a risk factor.
Now, Dr. Mitos, for someone who is diagnosed with a thyroid cancer and may not be ready for surgery for one reason or another, nakukuha ba ito? Is this treatable with medicine alone?
Unfortunately, it's not. It's really surgical removal of the thyroid that will help bring about that cure. It's caught early. The chances of you being alive in the next 10 years is actually very high, 90+%. Some even say close to 100%. So if you have a thyroid nodule that looks suspicious for cancer or is confirmed to be cancer, please have it removed. Now, this is the most important part, really, because we cannot continue with the other medications or therapies after you get diagnosed with thyroid cancer if the thyroid is still there.
Now, Dr. Arch, I'd like to ask, earlier you mentioned how the thyroid gland looks like a butterfly. Its wings being each lobe, so the thyroid has 2 lobes. Kapag ang isang pakpak lang or isang lobe lang ng thyroid ang malignant, ang may cancer, kailangan ba tanggalin yung buong thyroid gland or pwedeng yung parte lang, yung portion lang na may cancer?
Really depends on the size of the nodule and the size of the cancer present in the thyroid. Recent studies have shown that sometimes only one side can be removed if the cancer is caught early and the nodule is small. But in majority of cases, if medyo malaki na po yung nodule, then we will have to remove the entire thyroid gland so that the endocrinologist can give the additional treatment after the surgery.
Now, Dr. Mitos, you mentioned earlier how important our thyroid gland is. Pero kapag ito ay meron ng cancer at kailangan ng tanggalin ng buo, can the body function normally without a thyroid gland?
So we cannot function without thyroid hormone. And unfortunately, it's only the thyroid gland that can make thyroid hormone. The good thing is, though, after you get your thyroid taken out, after surgery for thyroid cancer, we can replace thyroid hormone with tablets. And these tablets are very small. You just have to take them once a day, but you have to take them for the rest of your life. So please do not forget to take your thyroid hormone because your metabolism, like I said, it depends on your thyroid hormone. If you don't have it, everything will become slow. You will gain weight. You will become very sleepy. You feel cold all the time. And patients in very severe cases, kung kulang na kulang po talaga sila sa thyroid hormone, they can fall into a coma. So we have medication available. It just has to be adjusted from time to time. You will see your doctor and they will do some tests. We check something called the thyroid stimulating hormone, TSH. That might sound familiar to some of our viewers. And that is how we adjust the medication. But it's something that you have to take for life.
With advancements in medical treatment and diagnosis, thyroid problems, no matter what it is, there is an option for that. We'll find out later how to diagnose and what are the options available today. Stay with us here on MedTalk Health Talk. We'll be right back. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and this is MedTalk Health Talk, your partner in healthcare. So we've been talking about the thyroid and how a lot of the problems with the thyroid, merong solusyon po para sa mga ito. Now let's talk about how to determine or how to diagnose na meron tayong problema sa thyroid. Dr. Mitos, what is the most simple and most cost-effective test that is done for the thyroid that can yield a good amount of information for the doctor?
So the best screening test that we do for thyroid function is the TSH, the thyroid stimulating hormone. So when TSH is high, we sometimes think about hypothyroidism. When it is low, we think about hyperthyroidism. So if we're screening somebody for a thyroid problem, we just use a TSH.
Now, Dr. Arch, let's talk about the biopsy. Many people are hesitant when they hear the word that they need a biopsy on their thyroid gland. How important is this? And is this something that the patient can do without?
So usually, pag ang isang patient may nakakapasang nodule, the doctor will request for an ultrasound. So the first step in doing a biopsy of the nodule is to do a fine needle aspiration biopsy. And many times it is done ultrasound guided so that you can get an accurate sample. So the needle that is used during a biopsy is very thin, very, very similar to the needles used for vaccines. So it's an outpatient procedure. It's done in the clinic with very minimal pain. But the information that it provides the doctors and the patients is very, very valuable. And most of the time, it is really necessary to be able to determine the next step that's best for the patient.
Now, Dr. Arch, when it comes to lifestyle naman, yan ang gusto natin, how to prevent it. This is what we want to know. Are there any lifestyle changes that should be followed in order to have a healthy thyroid?
One of the important factors in thyroid diseases is really iodine. The use of iodized salt has really helped a lot in preventing some of our thyroid diseases. And in general, living a healthy lifestyle, not smoking, moderate alcohol intake, will make you healthy overall.
Dr. Mitos, there's been some recent studies on some links between obesity and thyroid cancer. Could you talk a little bit more about this?
In general, obesity has a relationship with a lot of cancers, not just thyroid cancer. And it's also because of the alterations of hormones within the body. There can also be alterations in a woman's life, for example. That's why you mentioned earlier in the program that women tend to have thyroid cancer more than men. And this is also because of the hormonal changes that occur during menstrual periods or during menopause. So in order to maintain really a healthy lifestyle, and to maintain a healthy thyroid, it's really maintaining a healthy weight, eating properly. Some though might tend to think, okay, if I have a goiter, maybe I should eat more seafood. Let's just be careful about that, especially if you're not sure if you are hyperthyroid or not. Because like I said, iodine is the main ingredient in thyroid hormone. And if you eat too much seafood, you could be making actually more thyroid hormone. So if you have those symptoms of hyperthyroidism, palpitations, sweats, unexplained weight loss, please see your endocrinologist so that you can get tested properly for your thyroid hormones.
Before we go, Dr. Arch, do you have any parting words or advice for our viewers when it comes to their thyroid?
Yeah, so for our viewers and for everyone watching, if you feel something sa leeg niyo po, kung may nakapa kayo, go see your doctor right away. Because as mentioned a while ago, nodules, whether benign or malignant, once caught early, if the diagnosis is done at a prompt time, then the disease is very curable and you'll be able to live a normal life after.
Now, Dr. Mitos, any final words from you?
Huwag pong matakot uminom ng malamig na tubig, pwede pong kumanta, pwede pong maging madaldal, pwede magbuhat ng mabibigat. Di po ito magiging sanhi ng bosyo o goiter. And if you're concerned po about your thyroid function, please go see your endocrinologist. We can do a very simple blood test to find out if you need thyroid hormone replacement or if you need to control the amount of thyroid hormone that you make.
While it's a common condition, those living with goiter or any thyroid disease can go on to live normal lives. All you need is proper management and treatment. Thank you, endocrinologist Dr. Monica Kating Cabral and ENT head and neck surgeon Dr. Arjelyn Ong for being with us today and sharing your time and your insights. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez and thank you for watching MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. We'll see you again next time.